when you focus on doing the thing that needs to be done today, it allows you to put that down at the end of the day and go focus on the thing that has to be done in the evening. And I just go back to knowing, I have clients who make, they just roll their eyes at me every time I tell them to track things. I totally get it. It's not the fun part of business. We didn't go into business to, check boxes and track things, but you can't stay in business if you don't do it.
Right. Yeah. You have to have a dashboard. And the sooner you get that dashboard and those measurements in place, the faster you're going to be able to go down that path.
Hello, I'm Erin Marcus, founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, and I want to welcome you to Ready Yet? If all you needed was a step-by-step plan of what to do, you could buy a book on how to succeed and you would be all set. But here's the rub. You'll never do what it takes until you become the person it takes to do it. The Ready Yet podcast is dedicated to those who are ready to become the person who succeeds, ready to become the person who steps into more, and ready to become the best version of themselves. In the I'm Ready interview series, join me for inspiring conversations with people who figured out who they needed to be in order to achieve their dreams, and were brave enough to be that person. Welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast, where I get to have the fun job of talking to entrepreneurs about their journey, about what they help their clients do, and about who they had to become in order to achieve the success that they've achieved, hopefully, so you can take some nuggets away and do the same, right? So my guest today is Angie Noll, and I'm excited because you are two guests, right? I've had two guests now that were introduced to me by the amazing Linda McCabe. So we love her. And we hit it off right away because we were talking about numbers and money and all of the fun stuff that if you do it right, you get to do in your business and actually have fun with instead of being miserable. So before we get into that conversation, why don't you give folks a little more formal introduction of who you are and what it is that you do?
Hey, Erin, I am so glad to be here and I'm ready.
Yes.
I'm going to share a little bit about my journey for entrepreneurship. My company is Reconciled Solutions. We've been around for 15 years, so going on a while here. So I've had plenty of time to make a few mistakes in the process.
Perfect.
And what we do is we help people find peace and organization with their finances. So it's about visibility and clarity to their finances. That all sounds really sexy. What it is bookkeeping. And people don't like that boring word of bookkeeping, but honestly, I think it's quite sexy because bookkeeping is what's going to help us be profitable and sustainable. And that's what that's the real thing we help people with, is to help their businesses be more profitable and more sustainable.
And I love what you said about the clarity and the visibility, because my main topic is marketing. And I teach the exact same thing, clarity and visibility, right? I mean, so many times my clients don't know their numbers, and they don't know their numbers because they're scared of their numbers.
Right. Like so intimidating.
Right. Well, because they think they're going to feel bad.
Yeah.
They think they're going to feel bad. And I can't tell you how many clients I have are like, oh my God, I'm doing better than I thought, because in their head, because we have a negative bias in our head. We all, let's face it, we don't dwell on the good things. We dwell on the problems that, so you have this negative bias in your head. And if you don't have that clarity and visibility with your financial information, you're being unnecessarily miserable.
Unnecessarily miserable. It's very true. I think, like finances are so intimidating to so many people. And then because we're scared to look and we don't want to, pull the curtain open and take a look, we end up kind of hiding from it. And it could very well be that our gut instinct is not as good, like you said, as the actual numbers. And if we just realize that it's simple math, let's get it in place and figure it out, then we're just going to be able to be actionable. And it's all about actionable.
It's all about actionable. And the other thing is, you don't have to be the one to do it. Like, this is my number one thing. The first thing to give away as an entrepreneur, unless you are a bookkeeper, is bookkeeping.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't go into your business to be a bookkeeper, unless, you did, but, the rest of us didn't. And it's not something, you need to know your numbers, but the day in, day out, you don't have to be the one to do it. And you're kind of doing yourself a disservice, because there is a certain amount of knowledge that an experienced bookkeeper brings to the table to help you interpret your information.
Yeah, it's so important to have a good bookkeeper. I mean, and I say it more than just because I do bookkeeping for a living.
More than just because, hey, call me. Right, exactly.
I mean, the clarity that they can provide and just making sense of it, like how that compliance side, which I consider to be the tax side, marries to the financial performance and really setting yourself up for permanent profitability and success. Those are the things that we're after, right? Because people have this notion that accountants and bookkeepers, we're historians, right? We're always working in the past. And that may be true. We are working with past data, right? These are things that might have happened 6 months ago that we're still clearing up and asking questions about. Hopefully not, but these are things that we're looking back at to see how the business performed. But taking that historical data and knowledge and paying it forward into today's strategic actions, that's where the power comes in. That's where superpower comes in.
And you said something else that to me is a very important point. Marrying, as meaning these are two separate things. Marrying financial strategy with taxes. Those are like, I try to explain this to people all the time. QuickBooks, as an example, and I know there's other software out there, but it's kind of like Kleenex. We just use QuickBooks now to mean tissues, right? Kleenex means tissues. QuickBooks means software accounting. So the QuickBooks exists in a format to pay taxes from. It doesn't exist for us mere mortals to make business decisions from. It's not lined up well. And I think people confuse, just like we said, they confuse QuickBooks, let me get my ducks in a row to pay taxes, with the important information to make financial decisions from. Yeah. And then they end up not doing either.
Yeah. I mean, if you think of QuickBooks and the information in your bookkeeping file and the historical nature of it, those are all lag measurements, right? And we really want to be focused on lead measurements. We want those lead measurements to see how the business is going to be 3 months from now and 6 months from now and 3 years from now.
And you can't do it if you don't have the data.
Yeah, you have to have that data. I mean, how many things would you do differently if another pandemic came today, right? We don't have a crystal glass. We can't see backwards and see how we should have done things. So here we sit 2 years later, and we have the historical knowledge, and we are really, small business, I think, as a whole is super hardy and strong and diligent in going after what we want, like on the go forward, right? We have re-swizzled and removed and shifted and changed, and man, we had to do it on the go.
Yeah.
And you just, that was not available if you didn't have clarity to your financials.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing that you and I chatted, and I love this because I don't think this the reason to tell this story doesn't come up very often, but it also doesn't have to be that complicated. You don't have to make it hard. I know your profit first is, in your heart and soul of how you approach things.
Yeah.
And I shared with you that it doesn't, and one of the things I like about that concept is it actually simplifies things. And where I learned about money and how to manage money was from my grandmother, who, when I started babysitting at 13 years old, and I used to babysit 4 days a week, 2 days for one family and 2 days for another family. And in both cases, so that parents could go to work. I understood, which is kind of amazing now that you think about it. When I was 13, I was responsible for other people's ability to go to work, and they put their infants in my, like, you would never do that now, right? I was in charge of other people's children's being alive. Like, you would not do that now. But when I started babysitting 4 days a week when I was 13 years old, which means, let's face it, I had a regular, dependable income.
Yeah, you did.
Right. Now it was like $4, but hey, right.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother came over and she took envelopes and she wrote things on the envelopes. And one of them said savings and one of them said clothes. And, one of them probably was toys or candy, but, priorities for a 13-year-old. Mm-hmm. And every time I got paid, I had to put the dollars or the quarters in the different envelopes.
Yeah.
The theory's the same.
Oh, yeah.
I don't keep my money in my sock drawer anymore, but the theory's the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Grandma's pretty smart, isn't
Grandma
she?
Knew what she was doing.
This is not rocket science. Actually, one of my employees is a rocket scientist by trade.
So even if it is rocket science,
I'm like, well, we don't all have to know what you know. We just have to know what Grandma knows, right? That's what it is. And here's, if you're not familiar with Profit First and how to use it, it's using that Grandma's envelopes system in your business. And we do it through bank accounts.
Right.
And it might drive some people crazy because we open about 5 different bank accounts because each bank account has a purpose in your business. So we open a bank account for materials and contractors expense, one for profit, one for owner's pay, one for taxes, and one for operating expenses. Those are all the functions that need to happen in a business that works, right? And so when you have all those envelopes, Grandma's envelopes, in different bank accounts, then you're just leveraging your own habits, because our habit is just to look at how much money we have in the bank account and spend accordingly. Let me see what I have in the bank account.
Right. And we don't allow for the future expenses. We also don't allow for things. Thank God electronic banking has made this, a much shorter cycle. But I remember back in the day where you'd write a check and it wouldn't clear for 2-3 weeks.
And then when it did, oops, I forgot about that one.
And online bill pay has made this easy because all of those accounts are attached. You can still pay your bills in one location. But I love how easy, it sounds complicated, but I love how easy it makes decision making.
Mm-hmm.
You can just look, what's in there?
Would you steal from your own owner's pay to pay your rent for your property? That's ridiculous. I would prefer to have a roof over my head and clothes on my body and food in the refrigerator. And I'm certainly not going to take from the hand that feeds me. So if that account is named owner's pay, I'm not going to pay my commercial rent with it. That's ridiculous. That would just be poisoning myself.
Well, and it does help with the education around how you see yourself and seeing yourself as a business owner. And that's one of my big things. Do you see yourself and identify as a business owner, Or are you just somebody trying to do something? And I see that a lot, right?
Comment.
With solopreneurs, especially, I'm just a solopreneur trying to build an XYZ business. Or are you a business owner? Because those two people make very different decisions and end up in very different places.
Yeah, I go back years ago to having started this business, and while the internet was available, we didn't sit and do everything with our phone attached to us, right? It wasn't a part of our identity.
Our anatomy at that point.
Yes, our anatomy. And like, I think about all the resources available, like for instance, podcasts, all right? So podcasts are available for new entrepreneurs, and meetup groups, and just Googling, and all these different resources about how to start your business and how to manage your money and how to set a budget, and all these different topics are out there. But when I started, that was not available. And I was almost embarrassed to say to other people that this is what I'm trying to do. Like, I just didn't own it. And I think it's much easier today to own it.
Well, I think it's more acceptable because it's more known, right? I mean, you and I grew up at the same situation where you got a job and we were taught, get a job, do a good job, and stay at your job.
Yeah.
Period. Hard stop. End of story. Don't, just do that. So I said, when I left corporate, you don't want to be the person having the conversation with your mother that you're leaving a 6-figure income to go try to do something. Right?
Try to do something. And then in the first year, you might not even make $10,000. You might lose $10,000.
Right. I will let you know I made $11,000 my first year. I will have to know. Now, I don't know that was a profit, but from a cash flow standpoint.
Yeah. It's pretty scary stuff. It takes a strong soul to be an entrepreneur.
It does. And so how have you stuck with it? I love sharing the personal journey because we can learn from each other and inspire each other. But how have you stuck with it?
Yeah. Well, I'm a complete believer in slow and steady wins the race. Like you just got to make another step forward today. And that's what you really have to get done is what has to be done today. I have spent a good long time trying to multitask my life and be a mother and a wife and an entrepreneur simultaneously. But as I age, as the business gets older, and this child is growing up too, the child being my business, I realized that the multitasking really is for the birds. I mean, I really just need to focus on one thing at a time, do my best at it, and not make it perfect, but just do my best and move forward and make the mistakes I'm going to make and keep going. Just one more step, one more day,
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I know I really enjoy having conversations about who you need to be in order to reach new heights. As founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, I work with my clients at the intersection where what they need to do to succeed meets who they need to be to do it. If you would like to have a conversation about your business, please reach out to me at erin@conqueryourbusiness.com.
And it's not dissimilar. I'm going to go back to my envelopes. By doing that, though, you're full in and present instead of partly in and never present, which is never good for your business. It's not good for your kids. It's not, when you focus on doing the thing that needs to be done today, it allows you to put that down at the end of the day and go focus on the thing that has to be done in the evening. And I just go back to knowing, I have clients who make, they just roll their eyes at me every time I tell them to track things. I totally get it. It's not the fun part of business. We didn't go into business to, check boxes and track things, but you can't stay in business if you don't do it.
Right. Yeah. you have to have a dashboard. And the sooner you get that dashboard and those measurements in place, the faster you're going to be able to go down that path.
So talk to me a little bit. So one of my big things is that reaction mode is not a sustainable business model. And you've mentioned that truthfully, bookkeeping is a historian situation, but we want to do it in order to predict the future. How do you help the clients make that transition from looking at their numbers and turning it into a reaction game, right? Because I think that's a natural inclination, is to see that information and react to it instead of stay out in front of it.
Yeah. So we have to get to the heart of what made those numbers. I don't know, like I'm going to go back to the lag comment. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we can't change how much sales we had in January of 2022. January of 2022 is over and done. So we can't change it, but we can tear it apart and get information from it. So we can look at which revenue streams provided the most income, which revenue streams had the highest cost, and which ones had the best margin, and which clients, you know, when they called and you saw their name, you were like, crap, I got to pick up the phone and talk to this one. Like, that's an immediate reaction. That's not good, right?
Well, and then what I do is add to that and say, and then the steps before that, we could look at the family time you took off between Thanksgiving and Christmas from doing all your marketing.
Yeah.
And just reverse engineer how we got where we are.
My favorite word, Erin. Reverse engineer.
See, this is why when I met you, between grandma's envelopes and reverse engineer.
Reverse engineer. Sexy, isn't it?
Whether it's numbers, goals, marketing.
Yeah. One of my very favorite things that we do in this business is a lifestyle congruence exercise. And so lifestyle congruence is reverse engineering. So what we do is we measure up your revenue, we measure up your costs, we figure out what percentage are your costs and what percentage you're paying yourself in your business. And then we reverse engineer. So we take the numbers and the historical data that we've pulled together and we project it forward. So if you want to earn a six-figure income and you're stuck at $40,000 a year, this is how many more widgets you need to sell at your current margins to make it to $100,000 in payroll for yourself.
Because there's only three ways. Trying to think. Yeah, there's three ways to make more money in your business.
What do you consider?
You can sell more widgets.
You can sell more widgets.
You can raise the price of your widget.
Right.
Or you can open up another line of widgets.
You can cut costs too. You can cut expenses.
See, now this is where you and I differ on that one. Because while I agree you should manage your costs, it is not possible to save your way to success.
It is not possible to save your way.
So don't be crazy and go on spending binges that you can't afford and put yourself in a hole that has you hiding under the couch, right? That's not helpful. But you cannot save your way to success, meaning manage your costs, but don't approach your business from if I buy the online version of QuickBooks for $35 instead of the, package for $39, you can't make six figures that way. There's not enough pennies to be pinched.
Well, what I would say, while there's not enough pennies to be pinched, you can improve margins, and that comes down to improving business processes.
Yes.
So, and that's is especially true in today's environment where we are not finding enough workers to work. Like, one of the ways to fix that or to find a solution for that is there a process in my business that's really manual, and frankly, it sucks and it's costing and sucking up a lot of time and energy, and can I replace it with some piece of technology? That's like one thing that you can do, but the opportunity to improve margins is constantly in front of us. And I think it's especially in front of us for folks that are really in a growth mode, because what happens when you're really in a growth
mode is terrifying to profit margin. I use the image, you'll like this. Growing up in Chicago, everywhere is divided by true link fences, right? Like our entire city has been divided by metal fencing, right? Everybody's yard, the schoolyard. And you know how you go to throw the garbage out or take the dog out and you try to open the gate and the stupid little latches, there's two sides to the latches. They don't go up evenly. And if they don't go up evenly, they don't go up at all. So I look at efficiencies and growth as two poles in a fence with a plate across it. And you just wiggle it up. It'd be lovely. It would be a lovely thing for the gate to open smoothly and the latch to just rise, but that's not what actually happens. What happens is your income goes up, but your efficiencies are out of whack. So then you have to bring your efficiencies up to match so that your income can go up the next increment, and then you bring your efficiencies up to match. But if you get too far out of whack, you're stuck, right? You're stuck because your latch is uneven and it just ain't going to open at that point.
So you're shimmying, right? Erin's a shimmier.
Shimmy, right? It's the stock market. You shimmy your way you're generally on an upward slope, but you shimmy your way up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. Hopefully to the non-visual listeners, that also made sense.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the pole at the playground that you used to try to climb up, you wrap your arms and legs around it, you try to climb up, and
then you bring your bottom half up.
You don't have enough strength and you're like, wah, wah, wah.
Exactly. Yeah, those poles aren't at the playground anymore. I don't know how many of us survived those playgrounds. So share with me, you mentioned in the beginning, making the mistakes. I love sharing that information with people, because why we want to be inspiring and put our marketing face forward and let our ideal clients know that we can absolutely deliver on our promise and our ability to help them. The truth is that most of us fail forward. You'll appreciate this. Mike keeps asking me that, my boyfriend, he's like, we've got fail faster. When do we get to fail cheaper? Right. So
there you go.
Right. Yeah. What are some of the mistakes that you've made or that you've seen clients make, that things that just don't work, that you can share and help shorten somebody's learning curve?
Yeah. Here's a couple of things. Okay. So first of all, it's where you're spending your money. I'm big on where you're spending your money. I find that new business owners spend a disproportionate amount of money on education and professional development, especially on the female entrepreneur side, which starts businesses at higher rates, I might add. So there's more female businesses out there, but they are smaller in annual revenues. And there's a contextual fear of you can't fake it till you make it. So I just would encourage
just go do what you're very nicely saying is stop getting ready to get ready. You don't need another certificate. Just go do the thing.
Just go do it. Yes. Just go do it. Fake it a little bit. You'll be able to do it. You're smart and you can do it.
Totally agree with you.
So that would be one. I think that the measurability is super important. So we've talked about the intimidation factor of working with your financials, and that really, if you're over intimidated by your financials, what happens is you're not being measurable. And when you're not being measurable, you don't know how things are actually performing. You're just kind of going from your gut. So you being a marketing person, I mean, that's a big deal. We spend, especially as newer business owners, we spend a boatload of money trying to find the secret sauce to market our businesses and to put clients in the door, right?
And if you're not measuring it,
That's a mistake.
I said your gut is often accurate, but your feelings will lie to you.
So tell us more about that. How would you say that?
Because especially to your earlier point, you don't need another certificate, just go do the thing. Early in the entrepreneurial game is plagued by fear. There's so much of the unknown. And too many times that fear is what's driving the ship, right? It's what's driving the whole mechanism and making decisions based in fear. So if you have, however, data, and instead of making emotion-driven decisions, make data-driven decisions, it's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a small business owner, the advantage is that we're small, so we can shift and change our direction fast. The disadvantage is that most of us are starting businesses on a shoestring. So what I would say with that is you have to choose your marketing efforts very conscientiously, and then you have to measure them. So the two big measurements for me is how many leads. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's 3. I have 3. Okay. How many leads resulted from that source?
Yep.
And how many leads did you convert into a client?
Yep.
And now that's only 2. So I missed something.
How much money did that mean?
What's your return on investment?
Right. The third thing I track is then what was so we don't get too confusing. I don't even worry about lifetime value of a client. I'll just use either an average of a lifetime value of a client, or if you don't have that yet, what was that purchase, right? Yeah. What was that? So that you can look at not just numbers of clients, but the financial equivalency of the client. Because I've had, especially my last business, certain groups produced a large number of leads that did in fact turn into clients, but they were a significantly lower price point than other referral sources, which is not inherently a good or bad thing. It's just something you need to know so that you can make a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that you really need to know is how long are you going to do this?
Yeah,
okay, what bar is being set here? So did you get 10 leads per week? If your goal was 10 leads per week, and this week you got 11, and the next 3 weeks you only got 7, then how long are you going to go at 7 leads before you say, you know what, I really gotta shift something.
And I love predetermining that. I love predetermining how long am I going to try something before I stop. Again, to do your data, track your data, but 90 days, 6 months, whatever it is, depending on the source. Predetermine how long you're going to try something. So again, data-driven decisions. I went once, those aren't my people. That person made me, that person isn't my person. And then you bail on the whole effort. That's a fear-based decision as opposed to a data-driven decision.
It is. Yeah, that's really, really important. I have another one that I think is super, super important. It's understanding margin versus markup.
Oh, yes.
That's so confusing to people. And it matters, right? It's because we have to realize that if we mark something up by 25%, that's only a 20% margin. And that's really, maybe 20% isn't not enough.
But yeah, I mean, whatever your numbers are. So on that note, I'd love to get your opinion on something. Because again, in an effort to not overcomplicate things, in an effort to help my clients at least start to look at numbers in a different way, I was always taught that a really rough, I'm saying like kindergarten level rough, imagine this in crayon, so no sophistication whatsoever. I always shoot for a business that is run a third, a third, a third.
I love a third, a third.
Do you? Oh, yay. I was almost scared you were going to not like it. And then I wasn't going to know what to do because I like it. A third for the owner, a third for employees, and a third for operations.
Yeah. So I say, a third for the owner. That's for me to get paid.
Right.
A third is going to be to support the costs of the operations, and a third for the cost of the product and
product. Yeah. Yeah. So in a service-based business, sometimes the cost of the product are the bookkeepers who do the books.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think that's a really good model for a service-based business. But if you're in a product-based business,
that's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah. Where there's raw materials.
Yes.
I mean, 5-10 times your cost is required.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing that I've always been a big fan of tracking is fixed costs versus variable costs. What costs have to happen? What bills have to get paid no matter if I make 0 sales? Like, even if I make 0 sales, what has to be paid? And then what are the charges that come into play, like you said, in fulfillment?
Yeah, I could have a whole nother interview on that topic. For
we will plan
a profit first professional.
We will plan for that.
About materials and contractors.
Yeah, I mean, this is seriously, don't shy away from this. One of the things I teach people is the nerves, I call it your check engine light. When you get the clenchy feeling in your chest that something's scary, that something's wrong, that something's bad. Unfortunately, so many times finances is what triggers that. Yeah. And the best thing a business owner can do is learn how to not retreat from that feeling. Learn that feeling isn't something to run away from, but something to ask a better question about.
Yeah. I mean, and we don't know what we don't know.
We don't know what we don't know. And full transparency, I have an MBA. I used to work in a public financial services company. I know more accounting than an average marketer just because of that. But I would say it's fair to say what I have shared in this podcast is the extent of my knowledge, right? I think that, I mean, I know that stuff really well, but that's about where, I know enough to be dangerous, and I know enough to have an educated conversation with a professional who can guide me beyond what I know how to do.
Yeah. And it's okay not to know, right? That's why there's professionals out there, because as you said earlier, I mean, bookkeeping, I know it's my joy. It's my happy spot, but it ain't for everybody, right? And for most, to be honest, most people hate it. So why shouldn't you get somebody who actually enjoys it and knows what they're doing and is going to help you set up those metrics so you can measure your business, and then you get to measure it against your internal barometer and see how you're feeling internally. And does that match to the numbers that we're seeing?
Absolutely. I absolutely love it. So, and I love your approach and your accessibility, right? The accessibility of your willingness to share information and your understanding of what somebody is experiencing on their entrepreneurial journey, right? And bringing that to what it is that you do for them. So if people want to continue this conversation with you, and I seriously recommend that they continue this conversation with you, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to get in touch?
I would probably say the best way is via our website. So that's reconciledsolutions.net. So that's reconciled with an ED, and solutions is plural, and it's .net. It's not .com, darn it. And that's one way. Otherwise, look me up on LinkedIn. It's Angie Noll. And we're on Facebook. Under Facebook, it's Reconciled Solutions.
Great. And just reach out. If you have questions, just reach out. You are a vast knowledge, vast repertoire of knowledge that is just waiting to be shared. So please share. Seriously, Angie, thank you so much for spending time with me. This is not everyone's favorite topic. As you can tell, it's one of my favorite topics. And I think it's massively important for entrepreneurs to be aware of this side of their business. So thank you so much for sharing your story and your knowledge with everyone today.
Thanks for hosting me, Erin.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Ready Yet podcast. I get so motivated by the amazing accomplishments of the remarkable people I meet, and I'm excited to be able to share some of their stories with you. You can find more episodes of Ready Yet at your favorite source for podcasts or at conqueryourbusiness.com. And if you've already decided that you are ready to become the person you need to be to achieve your big goals, feel free to reach out to find out how I can support you in your efforts. Or check out the Work with Erin page on the Conquer Your Business website. I also invite you to share this podcast with anyone you know who loves to learn and be inspired. And if you're so inclined, I'd be absolutely grateful for any reviews you'd like to share as well. Thanks again for joining me. This has been Erin Marcus, hopefully inspiring and helping you to go conquer your big dreams.